Another scandal about the way people with leaseholds...
It's an ongoing scandal, really. This is the latest bit of research on this shows that about half the people who bought a leasehold in the last 10 years had no idea what they were getting themselves in for. And the point is, it's the costs which get associated with it, and then the difficulty of being able to sell a leasehold. Obviously, as the lease gets shorter and shorter, it becomes harder and harder to sell. And also, people now, of course, have been warned off leases because of the costs that come along with them. But let me give you an example of some of the things they're facing. When you buy a leasehold, you want to replace, say, flooring. The landlord will charge you, can charge you in some cases, up to about £900. You change your blinds. It's been known cases where people have been charged over £500 just to change the blinds in their houses. Put in a new front door, £400. Again, the landlord will charge you this. Also, there is ground rent, which can also rise as the lease progresses. These costs are built in there and you can see them, but many people simply did not realise when these leases were started that when these leases were, when they bought them, they did not realise what they were getting themselves in for. We're going to talk to Mark Hayward, who is Chief Executive of NAEA Property. Mark, some of these charges do seem pretty scandalous. These really are still going on, even when people get new leases?
Absolutely. I mean, we surveyed over 1,100 people who bought a new house and distinguished between a house and an apartment, a new house, over the last 10 years, and over 50% were unaware that these charges could be incurred. Some of them were even unaware when they bought the property that it was leasehold, and in fact a small percentage, 15%, were unaware that it was leasehold after they'd completed on the purchase. So the consumer is not being alerted, is not aware.
Is this not a case of caveat emptor, or was it not somewhere in the small print they should have just looked it through? I mean, heavens, when you're buying a house or buying a leasehold, it's a lot of money. You should be looking through all the small print.
Caveat emptor used to apply, but with the introduction of the consumer protection regulations, that supersedes caveat emptor, and the seller needs to point out to the buyer, in whatever sector it is, but in this instance housing, anything that would affect their transactional decisions, so anything material that might make them think twice. And obviously in this instances that hasn't been made clear either by the seller, and in the majority of instances that's a house builder, or by the lawyer.
Is this a problem that is continuing, that's going on, or is it just the people who have bought leaseholds over the last 10 years? They're obviously, they have problems, but actually it's a problem that's being solved for people in the future.
I think there is some instances where developers have looked at the way they sell houses and are changing. In other instances it may be buried elsewhere within the paperwork, but for those that have purchased, they find themselves trapped almost in a life sentence in that home, unable to sell it.
Is there anything that can be done for them at all?
It's difficult because it's going to be retrospective. In a vast number of instances, the freehold has already been sold on. We've got evidence to suggest the freehold is sold on the day after completion. So the freehold has been sold on to an investor by the very fact that they call themselves an investor. They're looking at capital gain, they're looking at income moving forward, so they're unlikely to want to go to sell that freehold back to the leaseholder at a considerable discount.
But this isn't happening on new builds, is it?
This is entirely, the ones we looked at were houses built within the last 10 years, so purchasers who bought within that period.
So, but houses which are being built now, they don't. Can this be done? Can this kind of arrangement happen?
It can still happen if it hasn't been pointed out, if they haven't been made aware, the lawyer hasn't alerted them, or the staff in the sales units of these new homes haven't pointed it out. And of course, they need to do so. They're not covered by the same regulations, for instance, as my members' estate agents, so they have a lot more freedom.
OK, Mark Hayward, thank you very much indeed for helping us through that.